بسرعة. Yeah, I'll just grab for you.
Assess by the कुर्सी निकाल दो.
Yeah, gotcha.
बैठो. Recite salawat, please.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياءهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون صدق
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. صلوات محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت تطلع لي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدن فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه بن نصر فقال يا فاطمة ائتي لك الكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام قرة عيني وثمرة أسوادي فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء فقال السلام عليك يا جده يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد قال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله وتأذن لي أن نكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء فقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء فقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ بي رسول الله في الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وعامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فصلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صلوات. قال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدنية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلك يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن رسالتي هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما بنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمينة وحي الله إنه نعم لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. صلوات. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. قال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر قبلنا هذا في من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبنا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتقوا. فقال علي يوم الله فزنا وخزاجتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة يوم ذكر قبلنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا قضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا الله فزنا to recite the salam for us. Salawatu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
है चलता निज़ाम गाजी वक्त तू है इमाम गाजी सलाम गाजी वफाक तू है इमाम गाजी नावे सलवात
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salawatu ala Muhammad. ये सोचता हूँ कि आबिद का हाल क्या होगा। ये सोचता हूँ कि आबिद का हाल क्या होगा। असीर हो के वो जब शाम में गया होगा। सुना है शाम में जाते ही खून रोने लगा। सुना है शाम में जाते ही खून रोने लगा। न जाने शिम्र ने उस वक्त क्या कहा होगा। गले के तोक ने आबिद को क्या झुकाना था। गले के तोक में आबिद को क्या झुकाना था। वो अपने खोए हुए लाल ढूंढता होगा। वो जुल्म देखे है सज्जाद ने हुसैन के बाद। वो जुल्म देखे है सज्जाद ने हुसैन के बाद। मुझे यकीन है कि अब तक भी रहा होगा। ये सोचता हूँ कि आबिद का क्या होगा। असीर हो के वो जब शाम में गया होगा। सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद। But now I'd like to invite Zakir Rizvi to come up to recite his majlis for today. Salawat bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That's going to come forward a little bit.
صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. For all those mu'mineen who have left the world, and in particular the marhumeen of all of those of you who are present, Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في قرآنه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين قوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فضل الله المجاهدين بأموالهم وأنفسهم على القاعدين درجة. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That was the most tired salawat, nice and loud all together. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Our topic over the next 4 days is going to be the life of the Imam. And the reason it's important to remember the life of the Imam is because if we claim ourselves to be followers of the Imam, and hopefully we all do, we claim ourselves to be those who love the Imams, the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and the Prophet, then we have to actually act upon that. You see, it's not enough for us to say that we're the followers of the Imam. We actually have to follow them to be their followers. But the problem is, to follow them, we have to know about them. And we know a lot about how the Prophet, the Ahlul Bayt, the Imams, they died. We know all about that, but we don't know much about their lives. We don't know much about what they actually did, who they were, what they were like, because we don't ever get the chance to learn about that much. So I want to focus over the next 4 days on who our fourth Imam actually was. We hear in these days a lot about the tragedies he went through, the pains that he went through, the trials and the tribulations, but I want to focus on his actual life as well. Who was Imam Zayn al-Abidin apart from what happened in Karbala and Kufa? Who was he apart from all those difficulties that he faced? I want to focus on that a little bit. We claim to be the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran what it means to be a follower of the Ahlul Bayt. He tells us, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, أَفَمَنْ كَانَ مُؤْمِنًا كَمَنْ كَانَ فَاسِقًا. Can a believer, someone with Iman, and Iman is the heart of faith, right? When you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His holy messenger, our holy prophets, and the Ahlul Bayt and the Imams. When you believe in all of them, that's what you call Iman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He asks the question in the Holy Quran, can a believer who has Iman, who has that complete level of faith, be the same as someone who doesn't? أَفَمَنْ كَانَ مُؤْمِنًا كَمَنْ كَانَ فَاسِقًا. Can a believer be the same as a disbeliever? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He continues the verse Himself by saying, لَا يَسْتَوُونَ. No, they're not the same, they're not equal. You can't compare a believer with full faith with somebody who doesn't have that faith. And so, we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, look, if you want to be raised up, if you want to be greater, if you want to be more important, if you want to have greater value in the eyes of Allah, then you have to have full faith in the Imam. You have to have full faith in the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, in the Prophet and his family. And the way to do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that as well. Because here He tells us that He gives virtue and He gives a high status to those who have that full Iman. And in another place He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Somebody who has knowledge be the same as somebody who doesn't have knowledge? It's a rhetorical question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us, look, if you're intelligent, if you're smart, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises you up. He increases your status. And when I talk about being smart, when I talk about your knowledge, I'm not talking about the grades you get at school. I'm not talking about how well you do in your lessons. Otherwise, I'll be honest, I wouldn't have done very well either. I'm not talking about how many facts and figures you know. It's about how you see the world, how you look at the world, how you understand the world. That's the key here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by saying that those are the things that He will raise you up for, things for which He will raise your status, He's telling us there's a clear link between intelligence and following the Imam. When we follow the Imam, we have to do it with intelligence. We can't do it blindly. We can't do it without any questions. We can't do it without thinking about it. Because then we're not true believers, not true followers. Why? Because we don't actually follow or believe what they've told us. We simply just carry on doing what we're told to do without thinking. A robot can never be a follower of somebody. A robot can never believe in any of their programs to do what they do. If we believe in the Ahlul Bayt or follow them supposedly without actually knowing anything about them, we're the same as that robot who just does what it's to do. We're not actual followers of the Ahlul Bayt. So we have to make sure that we are followers, and the way to do that, like we see in the Holy Quran, is through intelligence, is through knowledge. And the first thing we have to do is understand the Ahlul Bayt, so that we have something to figure out about them, so that we can actually learn from them. And when it comes to our holy Imam, the fourth Imam, there is a lot about his life that we can learn, a lot that we can take from his life. And as you go, you'll see more and more of the life of the Imam becoming more and more relevant to you if you look at his life. Unfortunately, many people don't. But the first two things, or rather the main two things that I want to focus on over these 4 days, are the two biggest challenges that our Imam faced. The two biggest issues that the Imam faced when he took on the Imamah. To take on the Imam, to take on the role of being the Imam, the leader of the Muslim world, for our fourth Imam was a very difficult moment. Why? Because it came to him in that final moment where Imam Hussein, his father, is leaving for the battlefield the final time. He comes to our Imam and he upon him the secrets of Imamah. Certain secrets which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has kept hidden from everyone, except the Imam of the time. And the way it worked was, to find out who the next Imam was, there were certain traditions put in place. The first is, every Imam would choose somebody who they absolutely trust. They would choose somebody who they were very close with. They trust them with absolutely everything they have. And that person would be given certain secrets of Imamah written and sealed. So when those secrets were written and sealed and given to that person that was entrusted to them, the next imam, without being told to do so, would come to that person and ask them for those things. In the case of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, we see that his father, Imam Hussein, the imam before him, he entrusted Bibi Salama. Bibi Salama was given a scroll with the secrets of imama on it. She was told, keep this safe. One day somebody will come to you and they will ask you for this. That will be the imam after me. And it was our Imam Zayn, when he returns after Kufa and Sham to Medina, he goes to Bibi Salma and he says to her, Bibi Salma, will you give me the things that my father gave you as a secret? The secrets of imama that were kept with you, would you hand those over to me? So we see in this, Imam Zayn al-Abidin was the next imam. We also see it in Karbala. When the imam comes to say goodbye to Sayyid al-Sajjad for the final time, he entrusts him with all the secrets that are kept for the imams. This happened when Imam Hassan passed away. He called Imam Hussein to him and told Imam Hussein the secrets of imama. It happened with Imam Ali alayhi salam. When Imam Ali passed away, he called Imam Hassan and gave him the secrets of imama. It's just the way that this series follows on. It's just the way that it works. They keep giving the secrets to one another. One thing that this tells us is the nature of knowledge held by our imams. They didn't simply have all the knowledge of the world available at all times. It wasn't simply in their mind ready to go at all times. No. The way that the knowledge of the imams worked was that when they wanted a piece of knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would lift the veils, lift the curtains that hid it and show that knowledge to them in that moment. We see on numerous occasions where people come to our prophets or our imams and they ask them a question and the imam turns to them and he says to them, look, give me a few days and then I'll answer your question. Give me 2 days or 3 days. And we see in different occasions that they go and they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or they ask Angel Jibreel to give them the information to answer that question. The way the knowledge of the imams work is that certain facets and certain pieces of knowledge, they're made available to them as and when they need them. But the responsibility of an imam and the knowledge of what it means to be an imam, that's with them constantly. That stays with them always. What it means to be an imam, that never leaves them. And so, in the first instance, we see the responsibility of the imam. And we have to figure this out before we look at why he did it. Because without figuring out what his role was, we can never truly figure out why he did what he did and the things that he did. The first responsibility of the imam is that the imam is meant to lead the people and guide the people and guide them towards Islam before anything else. The imam is meant to guide the people towards Islam, 1. 2, the imam is meant to look after the people and make sure that everyone around him at the time of his rulership living okay. They have food to eat, they have a place to stay, they have shelter at night, they have someone to look after them. These are all the responsibilities of the imam. This is what the imam has to do. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam does it as well. He tells us when he speaks about why he is going from Medina towards Karbala. He writes in a letter to Hazrat Muhammad al-Hanafiya and he says to him, إِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ النَّجَاةِ وَاصْلَحْ فِي أُمَّتِي. We have left. For what reason? We've left to seek the safety and to save the nation of the Holy Prophet and also to reform society. Now, when you look at these two things side by side, then you realize what the imam really means. And I've said this in majlis in front of a few of you guys before. What we're talking about when we're talking about the imam saving the nation of the Prophet is saving their afterlife, the next life. And how does he do that? By reforming society in this life. To reform was the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It was also the mission of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. Why? Because the first big challenge that our imam faced as an imam, the first major issue that the religion of Islam was facing at that Yazid had been destroyed by Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Once the people had seen the reality of what Yazid was, the issue that Islam faced was very similar to an issue that it faces today. And that is that Islam was growing very, very quickly. Islam was growing really, really fast across different countries and different nations. People were converting to Islam constantly. Now, that doesn't seem like it's an issue. It doesn't sound like it's an issue. It sounds like it's a great thing and it sounds brilliant. And you know what? It is. Even today, Islam is the fastest growing religion all around the world. There's no religion that grows as fast as Islam is growing. And that is for us a great source of honor. It's something we're very proud of, that people in the world are consistently and constantly seeing how true and correct our religion is. But here's the deal. As Islam was spreading throughout different countries, throughout different nations, throughout different places, the issue that brought with it was a very clear and simple one. Let's say, for instance, Islam spreads from Iraq and Iran and the Arab nations. Now it spread to Pakistan and India. And from Pakistan and India, it spread to China. From China, it spread to Japan. From Japan, my knowledge of geography is terrible. What's next to Japan? Does anybody know? Taiwan. It spread to Taiwan. And it's spreading constantly throughout the world, different countries, right? Now I'm going to ask you guys a question. We're not being racist here, but that's never a good start to a sentence, but stick with me here. Is there a difference between the people from India and people from Taiwan? Is there a difference between the people of Iran and the people of Pakistan? Is there a difference between the people of Saudi Arabia and the people of China? Of course, there's many differences, right? And again, because we're not being racist, we have to be careful about what we talk about here. But the difference comes from your culture mainly. And that's the difference we care about, right? Other differences, they don't really matter to us. But this one, it does. Cultures. And those cultures, as Islam was spreading, those cultures started to seep into the religion. People started following Islam in the way of their culture. Now, this was a major challenge for Imam at the time, because he had to sort the people away from mixing culture and religion. And it's important here to note, right? Culture is important. Culture does matter. Our culture is we have to recognize our culture. But what we can't do is let our culture be more important than religion. What we can't do is let our culture infiltrate our religion. We have to know which things I'm doing because they are part of my culture and which things because they are part of my religion. When we start to get the two mixed up and muddled up, that's when we have issues. That's when we have problems. But so long as we recognize the difference between the two, we're still in safe territory. In fact, not just safe territory, but good territory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran that He created us in groups and tribes. He's telling us, look, I didn't make you all the exact same. I gave you different cultures. I gave you different ways of seeing the world and living in this world. But your religion, it shouldn't be interfered with by culture. And I'll give you guys an example, right? So, the Pakistani and Indian culture, which most of us are from, in fact, I think all of us are from, sat in this room. We're all from either the Indian culture or the Pakistani culture. And in both of those cultures, respect is very important. Respect of your elders is very important. Respect of your parents is very important. It has a great deal of importance in our culture. So the way we talk to somebody older than us and the way we talk to our mates is different. Especially if you're speaking Urdu, you see in the language, you'll see words like aap and tum. And for those of you who understand Urdu, which I think is most of you, there's a very simple difference between the words aap and tum. Both of them mean you. If I say aap, I'm talking to someone older or someone with a certain level of respect. If I say tum, it's not disrespectful per se, but it's not respectful either. It would speak to a mate as opposed to someone older than me. And in Urdu, you have these differences, right? We don't have them in English. Now, if you look at the English world, if you look at Western culture or English culture specifically, respect isn't really a very big deal. Respect doesn't matter in English culture. It's not really a part of it. You don't have the same level of respect for your elders or for your parents in English as you do in Pakistani or Indian cultures. And in the same way, you can see it clear as day, because the way we address our parents is different. You'll never be calling my parents by their first names, but in English culture, that's perfectly normal. In Pakistani culture, that's considered quite disrespectful. You have certain element effects in Indian and Pakistani culture. Now, is that a bad thing? No, that's a very good thing. That's a value that Islam holds dear. It's something that Islam says, you know what, this is a great part of your culture. You should stick with it. You should use it. If you look at Japanese culture, then when it comes to timekeeping, they're really punctual. Japanese people or people from Japan, no, it's Japanese people. I don't need to be all careful with that, like how I'm speaking. When we talk about Japanese people, one of the things you'll notice is two things about a lot is hygiene and cleanliness and timekeeping and punctuality. They are brilliant with both of those things. They are brilliant with hygiene and cleanliness, and also with being on time wherever they go. In the Indian and Pakistani culture, we don't quite share that same level of punctuality, although we should try to as best we can. But here's the deal. Those are good parts of their culture. Now, should we say that culture's bad and you should get culture because Islam is more important? No, Islam doesn't say that. Islam's not telling you to get rid of your culture. No, embrace your culture, embrace the good parts of it, but don't mix it up with religion. Don't get confused between the things that are cultural and the things that are. And for us who come from very rich and very ancient cultures as well, the Indo-Pak culture, the Indian Pakistani culture, it dates back many, many, many years. Thousands of years, in fact. Ancient cultures, these are ancient tribes and groups of people. These are ancient nations. So we see that the culture is very old and very rich, and it has a lot of history behind it, which means that it can become very easy to in the cultural side of things. But the cultural side of things, it can't interfere with religion. One of the biggest examples, right, is the mix-up between where Matam comes from. Matam, which we do after a Majlis, the mix-up between where that comes from is the mix-up between culture and religion. Matam is not an act that Islam tells you to do. No prophet told you to do Matam. No imam told you to do Matam. Matam is a cultural sadness. And the reason, or the way that we can see very clearly and very evidently that it's a cultural thing and not something that Islam told you to do, is because if you go and look at people, they do Matam differently to people in Iraq, and they do Matam differently to people in Pakistan, and do Matam differently to people in India. And in fact, we can drill down even more. People in Pakistan, if they're from Karachi, they do Matam one way. If they're from Rabwa, they're from Punjab, they do it one way. They do it from Islamabad, they do it a different way. Even in Karachi, you go to parts of the city, you'll see different ways of doing Matam there as well. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do Matam because Islam didn't tell you to do it. What you have to realize is not everything that is cultural is bad. A lot of what is in culture is often quite good. We should take it and use it. And we see that because it was a cultural way of sadness and expressing grief, our Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and our imams, they embraced that part of the culture as well. They would do Matam. The companions and the women and children, they would do Matams of our holy personalities. In front of Sayyidah Zahra, in front of the imams, he would see his family doing Matam and things like that in their way, in the way of their culture. And the imam never stopped them. Because the imam never stopped them, we consider we're also allowed to do it. That's a whole different discussion, and there's a lot more that we can go into there. But that's one element of culture which, when we look at it, we can implement in order to gain an Islamic advantage. Because when we show love for Ahlul Bayt in our own ways, as long as it is correct and allowed in Islam, then that's fine. Then we're okay to do it. And not only are we okay, it can be rewardable. But here's the deal. When it becomes something that's not allowed in Islam, and for instance, I'll use the examples of these majlises, right? A lot of people, a lot of people, they've grown up learning about Islam with culture mixed in completely. They've grown up learning about the cultural elements of their life and the Islamic elements, but it was never separated for them. So now when you tell them what the reality of Islam, what the truth of Islam is, they don't want to believe it. They don't want to accept it. Why? Because that's not what they were taught. That's not how they learned. And that's not what they've always known and what their parents have known and what their parents before them have known. But here's the we have to do better than those who came before us. And that's not because we're better than them. That's just the responsibility on every generation to improve on the last generation. Your kids, inshallah, will one day do better than you guys, although we've got a long time before we have to watch it out. You see, for all of us, we have to make sure we know the reality. The first big issue that the Imam had to face and the first big challenge that the Imam had was removing that mixture of culture and religion. And we're going to look at how the next few days, inshallah. The second big issue that he had to deal with, the second big issue that he had to combat was that people had started letting their materialistic desires, their worldly desires, overcome their religious desires, overcome religious requirements and needs, rather. See, people had started getting to the point where they don't care about religion anymore, they just care about this life. The people who in the time of the Prophet, and you have to recognize how much people gave up of what they held in the time of the Prophet. So much so that when the Muslims leave Mecca and come to Medina, because they've been attacked and prosecuted and persecuted in Mecca, they come to Medina. The people who are in Mecca, they are known as the Muhajirin. Who live in Medina already, where the Muslims have come to, they're known as the Ansar. The people who left Mecca, they just got up one day in the middle of the night, kind of. I'm simplifying the story here. They left behind all of their things, all of their money, all of their wealth, all the stuff they had. They took a few bits and bobs left to go towards Medina, which means when they get to Medina to start a new life, they haven't got any money to do it with. They haven't got any resource to start their new life. What did the Prophet do? He paired up each one of the Ansar with one of the Muhajirin. Each one of the people living in Medina already to somebody who's come from Mecca to Medina. And the people who lived in Medina already, they would split half their wealth with the person who's just arrived from Mecca. So they were ready to give up a lot. They were ready to give up everything. Half of your wealth. Imagine everything you earn. 50% of it you got to give to a guy you've just arrived. If we told people to do that here, you'd start having riots from the far right. See, we're told here that Islam is a religion where everybody gives and gives, and they're so selfless, and they don't care too much about the materials of this world. At the time of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, people, they'd stopped caring about religion like that. They cared more about what was the reality, or they cared more about what they wanted in life, the material wealth, how they could get. Who had, well, not the fastest car, but who had the fastest camera, who had the nicest house, right? They started caring about things like this. And you know what? Islam doesn't say you can't do that. In fact, there's a time where a man comes, I believe it was our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. And he says to him, Ya Imam, or rather the Imam he's spending time with him, and the Imam sees this guy's house. And the Imam sees the guy's house and he knows that this man, he has money. So he asks him, he's like, why do you live in such a small house? The man turns to the Imam and he says, my dad lived in a small house, his dad lived in a small house, his dad lived in a small house, so I live in a small house. And the Imam looked at me and he said, you can afford a better house, get a nicer place to live, get a nicer house. So Islam doesn't tell you that you can't want a nice house. Islam doesn't tell you that you can't want a nice car. It doesn't tell you that you can't want to have nice things for yourself. But remember what the main priority always is. Remember what the thing that is most important always is. And the thing that is most important should always be Islam. It should always be the case that, look, no matter how many nice things I have, no matter how nice my house, how great it all is, when Islam needs it, I'm ready to give it up. When Islam needs it, I'm ready to do what Islam needs. If Islam tells me to give charity, I'm giving my charity. If Islam tells me to give khums and zakat, I'm giving my khums and zakat. Islam tells me that, I don't know, if the Imam comes to me one day and says, you know what, I need your car, I'm ready to hand over the keys. I'm not going to be like, oh, I like this car. This car's mine. I worked hard to get it. It cost me a lot of money. No, whatever Islam needs, be ready to give it up. Doesn't mean you don't have nice things. Have nice things. Do it. Enjoy it. You're meant to enjoy this life as well. But make sure your first priority is always your religion. Over the next few days, we're going to look at how the Imam tackled these two challenges. The challenge of culture mixing into Islam and the challenge of the material desires of the people overtaking their religion. I'll give you a quick glimpse into what the Imam did. There were two very key things that the Imam used, two very key resources that he had. One was he taught people, religion and education. And the second was he developed a relationship with the people, the relationship the Imam had with the people. These are two of the greatest used. And he used them in a way that he was able to start tackling the problem. But the difficulty of these problems is they never truly go away. They keep coming back constantly, again and again. If we look out at the world today, both of those problems still exist. The mixture of culture in religion and also the desire for the material world to overtake Islam. Both of those things still exist. So we're going to look at what the Imam did to fix those things and then try and figure out how we can do it for ourselves as well. Recite ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj. You see, the Imam's imamah, the Imam's leadership, the Imam's reign, the Imam's rule, it wasn't easy. Not by any means. by any stretch of the imagination. The Imam's leadership was amongst the most difficult things that we see. The Imam's leadership amongst the greatest pains that we have ever experienced, ever seen. You see, for our Imam, his Imamate started in the most difficult of times, in the most difficult of ways. The moment Sayyid al-Sajjad is told, Sajjad, from now on, you are the Imam, you are the leader, you are the protector of the people, he found himself immediately in a position where he had to protect those around him. When was the Imam told that he was now Imam? It was in the final moments where his father, Imam Hussein, comes to him. Bibi Zainab wakes Sayyid al-Sajjad up. He was unconscious on that day of Ashura. He wakes him up and says to him, Sajjad, your father has come to bid farewell. Your father has come to say goodbye to you. Sayyid al-Sajjad, he wakes up from his unconscious state. He regains consciousness. He looks in front of him. He sees Abu al-Hussein and he looks at him. Immediately, Sayyid al-Sajjad, he begins to question and he begins to ask. He says to him, my father, what has happened to you? The last time I saw you, you did not have a broken back. Your back was not bent over. The last time I saw you, he looks at his father. He says, the last time I saw you, there was light in your eyes. The last time I saw you, there was no blood on your face. Hussein looks at Sajjad. He says, Sajjad, the last time you saw me, my brother Abbas was still alive. When Abbas died, Sajjad, my back broke. From then on, my back has hunched over. He says, Sajjad, the last you saw me, your brother Ali Akbar was still alive. Sajjad, when Akbar died, Hussein lost the light in his eyes. From then, Hussein's light eyes have gone dark. Sajjad, the last time you saw me, I did not have this blood on my face, yes, but I have been back and forth from the battlefield so many times. Sayyid al-Sajjad, he looks at his father, he says to him, Father, how can it be time for you to go to the battlefield? How can it be time for you to go and give your life? Imam Hussein, he looks at him, he says, Sajjad, what can I do? There is only Hussein to give his life. Sajjad looks at him and he asks him, my father Hussein, how can you be the only one left? I remember on the 6th of Muharram, you wrote a letter to your childhood friend. You said, Habib, your Hussein needs you. Where is your Habib gone? Imam Hussein replies, Qad qutil Sajjad, Habib, my friend has been killed. Sajjad asks again, tell me, where is John Habashi, the African slave freed and came to give his life for you? Mawla Hussein says, Sajjad qad qutil, John has been killed. Sajjad says, my father, where is Hur and his son Ali? They too came to give their life for you. Hussein says, Qad qutil, Hur and his son have been killed. Sajjad, he asks about each of the companions of Imam Hussein. Each time Imam Hussein responds, Qad qutil, they have been killed. Comes the moment where Sayyid al-Sajjad, he asks about his own family. He asks, Aina Aoun, where is my cousin Aoun? Qad qutil, Aina Muhammad, where is my cousin Muhammad? Qad qutil. He asks again and again, Aina Qasim? Qad qutil, Qasim has been killed. He asks again, Aina Amu Abbas, where is my uncle Abbas? Every time they would speak of Abul Fadl Abbas, they would remember him as this great soldier, this great man who would never let anything happen to Imam Hussein. So much so that when the time came that Imam Hussein was killed, the cry was raised in Medina that Hussein has been killed in Karbala. Bibi Baneen, the mother of Hazrat Abbas, she went to Masjid al-Nabawi where the Prophet is buried, asked the man who had called out that Hussein had been killed, tell me, the Hussein that you speak of, the grandson of Rasulullah? The man says, yes, that same Hussein is the one who has been killed. killed. Bibi Momineen, she says to him, I know you must be telling the truth, but I cannot believe it. Why? Because with Hussein, my Abbas went to protect him, while Abbas is still alive. Nobody could hurt him. The man looks at her and he says, Abbas was killed in the battlefield as well. She says, now I know you're not talking about my son. You're not talking about my Abbas. Nobody could defend him in battle. The man says they tried to attack him, but what they did was they struck him from behind to make him fall from his horse. Bibi Momineen says, no, my Abbas, whether a blow came from in front or behind, he blocked it. The man says Abbas would have blocked the strike, but what could he do? His hands had been cut off, his arms had been severed. Bibi Momineen in that moment finally accepted that yes, my Abbas gave his life and my Hussein has been killed. And Sajjad asked Imam Hussein, Aina Abu Abbas, where is my uncle Abbas? When Hussein says Qad Qutil, now Sajjad realizes maybe it truly is time for my father to go and give his life. Maybe there really is nobody left, but there was one more person who Sajjad could ask about, who Sajjad could ask for. But before Sajjad can ask about the last person who can save the life of Hussein, Hussein interrupts him, he stops him, he says, Sajjad, understand this much, out of the men, either you are alive or Hussein is alive. Would ask, why, Mawla, did you interrupt him then? You let Sayyidul Sajjad ask about every single one of the martyrs except for one. Why did you stop him before he asked about the last martyr? Who was it? Imam Hussein, he knew Sayyidah Zainab is standing right next to him. He knew he has to stop before Sajjad asks the question, Aina Ali Akbar, where is my brother Akbar, my father Hussein? Hussein knew that if he says in front of Zainab, Akbar has been killed, the heart of Zainab would not be able to bear it. So Hussein to him, Sajjad, out of all the men, either you are still alive or Hussein is still alive. In that moment, when I looked to the history books and I tried to find where was it that Abu Abdullah told Sajjad, they killed all the men, they killed the boys, they even killed my baby Asghar, but I could not find that Mawla Hussein mentions Ali and al-Asghar to Sayyid al-Sajjad. So I wondered to myself, when was the moment that Sayyid al-Sajjad found out his baby brother Asghar has been killed? I looked through the books, I couldn't any moment where it would have become obvious until the 11th of Muharram, where they had the heads on the spears. One man calls out, wait, when Hurmala fired his arrow, there was a child who, that child is not on the stairs. Where is the 6-month-old baby of Hussein? So one of them looks around and he says, I saw Hussein carrying the baby in his arms. He went behind his tents. When he returned, the baby was not with him. Maybe Hussein buried the child. They don't know where the grave is in the sands of Karbala. They just know it is somewhere behind the tent. So what did they do? They started riding back and forth behind the tents, stabbing their spears into the ground. At one point, one of the spears lodges into something. As the man pulls his spear from the ground, not the head, but the entire body of baby Ali Asghar is raised up into the sky. Sajjad stood there watching. My heart tells me, Sajjad, who was unconscious in Ashura, that was the first moment he realized they even killed my baby brother Asghar. Sajjad is told by his father Sajjad, the time has come for Hussein to go and fight his battle. Sayyid al-Sajjad, the cane from beside him. He lifts himself up with the support of the cane, the walking stick. He walks over to one corner of the tents. He pulls out a sword. He turns as though he wishes to go towards the end of the tents, as though he wishes to leave. In that moment, Sayyid al-Sajjad is called out to by his father Hussein. Imam Hussein calls out, he says, Sajjad, where are you going? Sayyid al-Sajjad turns around, my father Hussein, if there is nobody left except me and you, then how can I stay alive and watch you go to die? Sajjad does not wish to watch Hussein leave for the final time. Hussein comes out, he says, Sajjad, no. Sajjad, this battle is mine. Your battle is much greater. Sajjad looks at him and he says, my father Hussein, what battle can be greater than what you have seen? You bodies of Horan, Habib and John, you brought Auna Muhammad and Qasim back to the tents. You saw the body of Abul Fadl Abbas. You lifted the body of Ali ibn Akbar. How can my battle be greater than yours? My heart tells me Hussein would not have uttered the words of what Sajjad would have to go through. Instead, he would simply look over towards Sayyidah Zainab, silently watching his sister, and Sajjad would understand my battle is so much more difficult. Hussein, you saw the deaths of all the Shuhada, but Sajjad will see the living body of Zainab, dead as she walks through the streets of Kufa and Sham, hijab ripped from her head, her honor and her dignity stolen in that rida and that chador, as Zainab is paraded through this, and Sajjad has no option but to stand there and watch on. على لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين فسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. We raise our hands in dua. I will make dua. You say Ilahi Ameen. Oh Allah, for all those mu'mineen around the world struggling with ill health, grant them complete shifa. Oh Allah, for all those mu'mineen who have left this world, raise their ranks in Jannah. Oh Allah, accept our ibadat over these holy months of Muharram and Safar. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time and allow us to enter under his banner. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع الدعاء. فاطمة حسين.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्ते क्यों आ रहे हैं. अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्ते क्यों आ रहे हैं. अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्ते क्यों आ रहे हैं. कैसा है ये चरागा बिल्दू पे जा रहे हैं. क्या शाम आ गया है. अम्मा फिजा को पत्ते क्यों आ रहे हैं. अम्मा फिजा इतना चले हैं पैदल हाथों पे सारे कैदी. थक जाती चलते चलते चलती आ गए जमीन भी. पैरों के आबले भी आंसू बहा रहे हैं. क्या शम आ गया है. अम्मा फिजा दे मुझको पत्ते क्यों आ रहे हैं. अम्मा फिजा किस तरह के हम पे दुआ कराए, ऐ कैदियो दुआ दो ये दिन ना हम पे आए। लेकर दुआएं हमसे दिल भी दुखा रहे हैं, क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा, पता क्यों आ रहे अम्मा फिजा, बता दे मुझे। नेज़े पे जितर है एक सर है उनमें ऐसा, आंखें है बंद उसकी खाक पर है गिरता, अब्बास का ये सर है तेरे बता रहे हैं, क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा, अम्मा फिजा, होने लगी अज़ाने कैसे सरों खुदा पे बाज़ुदे हुए हैं, क्यों रो रही हैं आंखें, आंखों को खून से रस्ते खून में नहा रहे हैं, क्या शाम आ गए अम्मा फिजा, नेज़े पे रो रहा है मुश्किल खुश बेटा, नामहरमों के लब पर आया है नाम मेरा, मुझको कनीज़ ज़ादे ये यूं भी आ रहे हैं, क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा, बता दे मुझको पता क्यों आ रहे हैं, कैसा है ये चरागा दिल डूबे जा रहे हैं, क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा,
या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद।
अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूलल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या नबी अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीरुल मोमिनीन अली इब्न अबी तालिब, अस्सलामु अलैका या खदीजतुल कुबरा उम्मुल मोमिनीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या फातिमतुस ज़हरा सय्यदतु निसाइल आलम, अस्सलामु अलैका या हज़रत इब्न अली अल मुज्तबा, अस्सलामु अलैका या अबा अब्दिल्लाह व अलल अरवाहि अल्लती हल्लत बिफ़िदाइक, अलैकुम मिन्नी सलामुल्लाहि अबदा मा बक़ीतु व बक़िया लैलु व नहार वला जअलहु अल्लाहु आखिर अहदि मिन्नी लिज़लालतिकुम, अस्सलामु अलल हुसैन व अला अली इब्न हुसैन व अला औलादिल हुसैन خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبا الفتح القاسم بن أمير المؤمنين وأختك زينب وأم كلثوم بنتك سكينة جميعا رحمة الله وبركاته. عليك يا علي بن حسين سيد العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى ابن جعفر قاسم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرفاع. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن الهادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا خرجة بن حسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام النوم الإنس والجان. أجل سهورك أجل سهورك يا بن الحسن يا بن الحسن. أجل سهورك أجل سهورك. السلام عليك جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك وجد حسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توا وتبتئه فيها جميلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.